Let's talk some Alabama recruiting. And we have been talking a lot of Alabama recruiting on this channel, but it's been mostly about the Bama coaches out on the road seeing top targets. But this weekend, it's going to be about the top targets coming to Tuscaloosa to visit them. It was a huge weekend. So we got Andrew Bone from Bama Online. He's going to take us behind the scenes of this important junior day. But first, Bama fans, do me a favor. Hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We're trying to grow this thing, and we need Bama fans to be a part of it. Jump on board and hit subscribe. All right, let's bring in Andrew Bone from Bama Online. And you guys have confirmed close to 50 legitimate names of prospects from 26, 27. So go to Bama Online, go check out all they got going on. But Andrew, I want to talk about the 5 stars with you, and we'll start with Tristen Keys out of Mississippi. He's the number 7 overall prospect in America, one of the best wide receivers. What is he saying coming out of this one?
Well, he had a lot of high praise about Alabama coming after the weekend. This is a guy that Alabama has recruited for a while, but this was also his first trip to Tuscaloosa, so you kind of wanted to see what he thought about the campus, the facilities. He already had a great relationship with coaching staff, including Jamarcus Shepard. So this was more about being around the players on the team, being around the support staff, getting a chance to meet the medical, training, strength and conditioning staff. All of that was very positive for him. He had a lot of great things to say about the weekend. I think Alabama has certainly made a strong push there. Even though it's still several months until he signs, I think Alabama's done a really good job as far as getting him to strongly consider them and get an official visit out of it. So we expect him to come back to Tuscaloosa for an official, but also for a spring visit. So getting him on campus right before the dead period, very important for Alabama.
Yeah, he said something to Steve Wiltfong that struck me. He said, quote, "I got to be around a couple guys I may end up being in the locker room with," end quote. Now, to me, that sounds like not only is he going to be interested in Bama moving forward, but he sees some other guys on campus that were also really interested in the Tide this weekend.
That's right. We saw Alabama this past year. They signed the number 3 recruiting class according to On3 Sports. And a lot of those guys that were in that class, they were around these recruits this weekend. And there was a lot of, obviously a lot of high school rising seniors, a few rising juniors that were in Tuscaloosa. But being around guys that had just signed with Alabama from different parts of the country, I think that was a good thing for Alabama as far as developing these relationships with these guys and trying to sell them on why they chose Alabama, but also why some of these 5 stars and top 100 guys should come to Alabama next year.
All right, let's move on and talk about, we go from number 7 to number 8. Brandon Arrington, the number 1 athlete in America. He's been on this channel before, said kind of that Texas A&M was his leader, but he's also made some West Coast visits as well. What's your feel for the number 1 athlete in America after he was in Tuscaloosa this weekend?
I think Alabama made a big move for Brandon Arrington. He said that he had a lot of great things to say about the trip to Tuscaloosa. I think the most important thing with Brandon Arrington was he arrived in town on Friday. So he spent Friday, Saturday before leaving town on Sunday, and really had a great trip. Originally was recruited as a wide receiver, wants to play defensive back, so he got a chance to spend some time with defensive back coaches, but also the defensive backs that are on the roster that are from California, guys like Dijon Lee. You have Damani Jackson, Xavier Brown. Those are guys that are from the West Coast, from California, that he's known, that he's had relationships with. And, those guys are going to be recruiting them. Last year we saw Damani and Xavier. They were such a big factor in decisions for Dijon Lee and Chuck McDonald, 2 guys on the West Coast that Alabama signed. So now we're going to kind of see Dijon Lee, Chuck McDonald recruiting Brandon Arrington in this cycle. But I think going into the weekend, this was a guy that Alabama probably made the biggest move with. As you mentioned, Texas A&M had been at the top of the list. But I think after this weekend, Alabama may have moved ahead. But it's still a long way to go. And we know those official visits are going to be important in the spring and summer.
Yeah, they definitely will. Now, we're talking about out-of-state guys, but there was a big one in-state. The number 1 player in the state of Alabama, edge Anthony Jones, was on campus. Really important to lock down the state of Alabama. I know it's fun to go out to California and fire up that pipeline from Cali to T-Town, but it's also important to get these top in-state guys. What are you hearing on edge Anthony Jones coming out of this one?
Yeah, you said it. I mean, Alabama recruited extremely well out of state this past cycle, but this year there's going to be a lot of focus in state, and there's a lot of attention, especially from the fan base after last year, only signing
Yeah.
2 in-state guys. We saw several in-state recruits in Tuscaloosa, several that already have offers. I think there were 10 in-state recruits that have offers from Alabama that were in Tuscaloosa on Saturday for Junior Day, including Anthony Jones. And this is a guy that has been recruited by this coaching staff since last January. If you look back, Coach DeBoer and the staff went and saw Anthony Jones. He was one of the first kids they saw last January after arriving as the head coach of the Crimson Tide. So this is a relationship that's gone on for a long time. He was back in town, had a lot of really positive things to say, but we've talked to him kind of throughout this last month. And he had Christian Robinson, Freddie Roach, Coach DeBoer at one of his basketball games about a week and a half ago, and was really impressed by them coming out and seeing him. But I think Alabama, as of right now, is in that top group as far as top 2, top 3, and they're going to be there all the way until the end of this, until he gets ready to make his decision. So we're going to be watching Anthony Jones closely, but there's several guys in state that I feel like Alabama's got a great shot with, and they had a lot of those top guys on campus this weekend.
Yeah, Anthony Jones is going to be one of these battles that we definitely have a close eye on for Alabama fans until that decision gets made. Let's hit on a couple more. One I want to bring up is Sincere Johnson, a great linebacker prospect, 6'3", 235, top 10 at his position, and he's from Glenville High School in Cleveland. We know they produce some superstars out of Glenville High School. So what's your read on him? I know, coming from Cleveland, not exactly an area that Alabama hits all the time.
Yeah, and we saw Alabama go into Ohio last year and sign one of the best players in Justin Hill out of Cincinnati. Now they're over in Cleveland and really trying to get Sincere Johnson. This is a kid that they offered just less than a month ago. I think it was January the 8th when they extended him the offer, and this was his first trip to Tuscaloosa. He's been to Alabama before. He's actually has family in Auburn. Now, Auburn's not a finalist for him or a top contender in his recruitment at this time, but Alabama is, and he had a great trip Tuscaloosa this weekend, being recruited as an inside linebacker. He's already hit it off really well with Chuck Morrell, new linebackers coach for the Crimson Tide. But getting to campus for the first time was really important, especially before the dead period. So we certainly think that Alabama is going to be a major factor in his recruitment. But as you said, it's a tough area to recruit in the state of Ohio, especially with the Buckeyes, because considering him one of their top targets.
Yeah, and you said that Sincere Johnson picked up that offer about a month ago, and now he's a priority, he's a top target. Well, there was a new offer that went out this weekend, and I have a feeling Alabama fans are going to need to know this name. Chris Booker, he's from Atlanta, his first big time offer. I mean, he's got Georgia State, Georgia Southern, USF, some others like that in that range, but now the Tide have offered 6'4", 275 pounds. Obviously, this is a guy that they've gone to evaluate. Now that he made it to campus, they offered him. What do you think this offer means for Booker and his recruitment?
Well, it's huge for him, no doubt about it. We talked about him on BOL the other day. I think he was the only player that visited Alabama this weekend for Junior Day that did not have an offer prior to his visit from the Crimson Tide. So getting him on campus, getting a chance to kind of sit down with him, meet his family, get the accurate measurements, 6'4". I think he's right over 280 pounds. Alabama really likes him as an interior offensive lineman. He doesn't have that big list of offers yet, but I would expect it's about to start growing, especially with Alabama jumping in there. He had Mississippi State, Kentucky; those were some of the early offers. But you look back a year ago, Alabama was offering guys that nobody was really talking about then either, like Jackson Lloyd and Michael Carroll. So I trust this Alabama offensive coaching staff when they're evaluating offensive linemen, and they've done a good job so far. And this is a kid that I think really going to explode. And a lot of people have asked if he's related to Tyler Booker, but he's not. No relation there to Tyler Booker, but definitely a interior guard that or center that they are certainly going to amp things up with over the course of the next several months.
Yeah, thanks for clearing that up. You guys covered a huge week, and you and Tim Watts do a phenomenal job over on Bama Online. We really only scratched the surface of big names that were on campus, so I implore you guys to go check that out. But Alabama fans, talk to us. How do you feel about this first big Junior Day weekend? I mean, it was absolutely massive. Who are some of your top targets heading out of it? Let us know. Comment section below.